Yeah, wind is kicking today. It's cold. All right, so I'm on a pretty steep hill grade here. I'm gonna remove this tree here. And as you can see, it leans out hard over the shed here towards the house, over the fence. But I'm gonna use this hickory shag bark behind it to get a good tie-in, maybe to rig from if I need. But I can lay some stuff into the backyard. Is probably what I'll do. But yeah, as you can see, the wind is really kicking up there. Jeez. Right on. This ought to be fun. So yeah, I'm gonna get to it. I'll click you guys in right as I head up. Well, hello guys, welcome back to another video from Tree Life. This video we're gonna discuss and try to demonstrate and label how to use this technique for a climber to be able to solo rig and not have to unclip his own limbs. That's the hardest part of doing solo rigging, and the trickiest part is that you have to still have a man on the ground to unclip the limb. So in this situation, I have to go all the way to the top of this shag bark to inspect my climbing or my tie-in point, because my climb line was going over what I thought was just one little twig. It ended up being multiple and was really incredibly unsafe. After I got up there, I was so happy that I went ahead and did that, because it gives me a bit of comfort and make sure and ensures that I'm going to be safe and I don't have to think about this during the removal process. So what I'll do from here is reroute my rope a little bit, and then we're going to drop down and swing over to this tree and try to start removing it. We are dealing with some excessive and heavy winds, so we'll probably have to rig a few things that we normally wouldn't, but we'll make do. Alright, so I'm going to start to work my way down here, and I will put my original anchor point about right here where I'm at in this shag bark. Then I will swing myself over and get into the tree that I'm actually removing. I'll find another high point in this tree. I will put a speed line strap and hook it up. Well, now we have a span of rope between the two trees, and that'll be the span that we're actually rigging off of. We're rigging off this section from here to here. Now we'll pull that span of rope down and then anchor the limb that we want to cut off to that. So it's going to be kind of riding in between the two. Now you anchor the limb off with another speed line strap, and that's how this is going to work. I'm going to be able to get the rope back because of the speed line strap and because we're span rigging. So remember, we're anchored off here, the rope runs over to the redirect and then down. Now this system isn't insanely difficult to set up. We're pretty much set up right now, and the only thing we need to do is designate the limb that we want to cut. You're going to take a speed line strap, anchor it off, and the piece of rope, the section of rope between these two trees is where it's going to ride. You're just going to clip your limb to this section of rope, this span of rope from here to here. Now the strap and the carabiner is just going to ride the line as you lower it down in between these 2 points, just like it's doing right here. So the thing you have to remember is the high point, which anchor point is higher, is going to determine which direction the limb goes. Does it move to the right or to the left? Now, that's going to determine, be determined by which one is the high point. It is always going to move to the low point. The best way to be able to always, ride the middle is to make sure that your 2 points are parallel to each other. They're eye to eye. So same heights, you'll ride the middle. If one's lower than the other one, it's always going to ride to the low side. You have to remember that. Now, in this situation here, I should have made my tree that I'm in the high point, and I should have made the shagbark the low point, but I didn't. I did it backwards. So that's why I'm having to deal with the limbs wanting to drift over to the fence. So a little bit of a tricky situation as far as that goes. I should have set it up opposite, but remember that when you set these up. Now, I gotta wiggle this thing loose, get it to start to lower. Now it'll ride pretty much to the middle because my points are pretty close. There's not a big difference between the height, but as I'm kind of stuck on a little stub there. Okay, as it comes down here, you can see it's running off the span of rope. It's running off like a big V right now. As I lower, I'll start to lower. It gets ready to touch the ground. It'll direct itself kind of one direction, and I'll let the rope just kind of run out. Now I'll reach over and I'll grab the other anchored end, the original anchor, and I will just pull my rope out. And the only thing that's going to happen is you'll lose a speed line strap, but losing that speed line strap keeps you from needing a guy on the ground to disconnect it, keeps you from having to go all the way down every time. So I would carry a lot of speed line straps so you can set up as many redirects as you need, and so that you can rig as many limbs as you want. The way the system works, it rides a span of rope. After you get it to the ground, you reach over and pull the rope completely out of the system. It's still anchored to your original anchor point. That's usually the one that I grab. I'll reach over and grab the original anchor, and I will pull the rope out. It'll come off that strap that was attached to the limb. Bring it back up to yourself. You reset it in the redirect and reset another limb, and repeat the process as many times as you need, or until you need to change the setup. In this one, I think I end up actually switching the entire rigging setup and not using the shagbark anymore. I end up switching everything over to this tree so that I can lower a few limbs down and into the backyard. Now, I'm not totally alone here, so I don't want anybody to think I'm here all by myself. There are guys working the house over, so I just don't want to bother them. I want them to be able to do their work, and we get done quicker. So that's the reason I'm using it. I do have a limb here that I lowered down, and it kind of set against the fence there, and I'm about to free cut a bunch of stuff. So before I end up hitting that limb and putting a dent in the fence, I do holler over, and Dave's over there. I have him come over real quick and take that off, and then uncover my climb line, and then grab those couple speed line straps that I've lowered down already. And since he's over, he goes ahead and clips them to the end of my climb line, so that here in a little bit I can just pull them back up and reuse them. So this is just a repetitive process. The setup is where all of the technical aspect of this, it's all in the setup. Now, depending on how big the pieces are, you may need some friction. You may have to take one end and tie it off on a stub, or run it through a couple crotches or something. Or what I like to do is use a figure 8 and use it as a lowering device up there where I can disconnect and connect it as I want. So like I said, here in a second I'll holler over. Dave will come over, give me a quick hand, help me reset here, and a lot of this stuff I am going to try to free cut, but this wind is really doing a number on us. So there's Dave there. I'll let him grab a few things and we'll get back here to the video. The funny part here is this is something that, you know, I've not used with Dave, so he's a bit puzzled here. Like, he's asking, you know, you need help? You're gonna need help disconnecting and rigging and this and that, and it's just a technique I've not ever showed him, so he's oblivious to the whole thing, and he's a bit puzzled. So he's just trying to lend a hand, making sure I'm okay. But yeah, definitely not a technique that gets used all the time, and isn't a technique that you really need if you have the hands available to make it quicker. So it does take a little bit more time, but it can save a lot of backache and a bunch of extra climbing if you have the speed line straps to do it. I would recommend trying it once or twice in a situation or scenario that it's not life or death, and so you can get a little bit of practice and maybe learn a few of the nuances to it. So I'm just gonna keep cutting here, and yeah, hope that made some sense. If there's any confusion, please just leave a comment and I will try my best to answer it. If I can't answer it, maybe I'll make a whole nother video explaining this. But it's not the most complicated thing. It's actually pretty simple, but it seems like overly complicated when it's being explained. But if you was to be in person and see it, it's very simple. And I think 90% of you that do this could do this and have no trouble. So I recommend giving it a shot, and I hope it helps you out. Like I said, any questions, leave them. I will do my best to answer. Alright, so this log still leans hard. Oh, God. Ow. Dang it. Yeah, it still leans hard. Not this way, like crazy. I'm gonna try to swing it this way. I'm gonna redirect to this tree, to the tree just there. So, should work good. So I've voiced over the rest of this video, might as well finish it up. These GoPros are a bit tricky. They are wide angle lenses, so it makes things look shorter and it doesn't show depth very good. So this lean is directly towards the shed, so it's really hard to see. The camera's going with the lean, especially with these wide angle lenses. It just doesn't show it correct. And we're on a very steep grade hill, so this is a lot trickier than it looks. I know most tree guys would just be like, just cut the damn thing, get it over with. But it's not that simple here. It's quite a bit longer than it looks in the camera too. So you've got a pull rope in it, good knot. Got the wedge, and I'm pulling over here. You can see we overcompensated that lean with a bit of a side pull, and then with a redirect and ran it to the tree jack. But I got kind of lucky here, and you're about to see I got pretty close to smashing this pipe. Alright, so it was leaning like that, and we took it there. It rolled a little bit, but you actually see it went right over before it hit. It's actually a pipe right here, a drain pipe. We hit right after it. So, cool. So I tell you what, it's the tip of that smashed right after that drain pipe, like about that close. Dug a hole. All right, I get asked all the time, what's the difference between a conventional notch and a Humboldt? A Humboldt with a bottom lip with where it's slanted at the base will allow the log to travel off the stump. That would have come up probably a few feet shorter and smashed straight into the ground, and maybe even stayed on the stump with a traditional notch. Traditional notch has to close up all the way. It has to rip itself off by going over center, and a Humboldt travels off much easier. Yeah, they mushroom like crazy too, which sucks. So well, nice close stump cut. All right, cut up, done.